was, in early Shasta County, a distinct discrimination between the whites and Negro, but little or no violence ever occurred. The Negroes, small in population, kept their place in society and were treated fairly and honestly by the white race. This admirable condition prevailed for the most part, even during the years of the Civil War between the states. An article in the Shasta Dial newspaper on January 1st, 1865, illustrates the harmonious condition in Shasta County society. The article reads as follows: "The colored people of Shasta County, numbering in the neighborhood of 300 adults, celebrated Emancipation Proclamation by giving a grand ball. Combined with the celebration was the marriage of Miss Coffey. The celebration was truly a big event. All kinds of liquid refreshment were served free to all. The supper was something never to be forgotten. Shasta City had a segregated school for its colored children. The students, paying a small tuition, received a good education. The school, although private, ranked among Shasta County's nicest schools. The Negro in Shasta County continued to live and prosper with the same advantages and rights as any other race, with little or no racial conflict."
I was born in 1932 in Reading. The construction of Shasta Dam began a few years later, and Reading had a lot of jobs. My father made a good living for the family, and Reading is all I've ever known since I was a child. Once the war began, the prosperity in Reading came to a grinding halt. I was a pin setter in a bowling alley, and I sold newspapers. I went to Shasta High School for a few years. I didn't finish. Competition was on my mind. I really loved boxing. I really liked football. But soon, boxing was on my mind full time. Gotta be tough. Gotta make a name for myself. Whether on the street or in the ring, no one would stand in my way. I would beat them all. It was in my blood. My Uncle Dave Mills, he was a championship boxer in South America. And he was the one who put me into my first fight. I started off strong with a 2-0-1 record. 2 wins by knockout and 1 draw. Not too bad. Gotta be tougher. Gotta be faster. Gotta be stronger. I had to pay the bills. I started working with my dad. We cut trees. I delivered mail. It wasn't fighting, but it kept me physically strong and mentally tough, and I needed that. What did they call me? They called me Cautious Eddie. You don't know me? You should. Not everything was coming up roses. I was arrested and spent 3 years in the slammer for armed robbery. I promised myself I would never, ever go to prison again. It wasn't a place for me. I vowed that you would never find me there, and I told anyone who would listen. I'm 23 years old now. Time to get serious. I made boxing into my full-time career. My first manager was my Uncle Dave Mills. I went through Christy Louie, Lee Hughes, and I ended up with Sid Flaherty, and he was managing the biggest names in boxing at the time, so it seemed like a very good decision. Managers and promoters, they always come with the boxing profession. Gotta be faster, gotta be stronger, gotta be tough. Don't let myself down. These are the gloves that defeated Johnny Summerlin, Tommy Hurricane Jackson, Brian London, and Howard King. And just between you and me, when I knocked out Nino Valdez, they needed smelling salts to revive him. These are the gloves that fought Sonny Night Train Liston, Floyd Patterson, and I actually thought I won the Sonny Liston fight. A lot of others agreed with me too. Like many fighters, I took too many blows to the head. My dome wasn't right. And let me tell you, I felt certifiable. I thought about taking my life, and I was ready with a note and a gun. I was sitting in a car thinking about things. I had to go spend some time in the Wacky Shack. So I went to Napa State Psychiatric Hospital. Everyone there said I suffered from depression and financial stress, but who really knows? That's not the only time I went to Napa State. I went again. Eventually, I had a chance for the big ticket. I fought for the World Heavyweight Championship against Ernie Terrell. I lost in a heart-pounding, gut-wrenching 15-round decision. Oh, Ernie couldn't knock me down, couldn't knock me out. Judges had to decide this one. You know about Joe Frazier? Oh yeah, I fought Smokin' Joe too. I lost in 10 rounds. I also broke the promise to myself. I was arrested 2 more times for minor incidents with the heat. You know how that goes. I eventually retired from boxing. And we can all agree that my life was epic. And I met my maker in San Francisco in 1972. I was 40 years old. I have a very, very proud record, 50, 11, and 3, and I can hold my head high. I was one of the best unranked heavyweight boxers of my time. And I'm proud to say that my family, the Machen legacy, is still alive in Shasta County today.
Fighting machine, using the classic stand-up boxing style with great effectiveness and with plenty of punch in either hand. Liston is noted for the amazing power he gets behind his long left jab. Everyone agrees it's the best of its kind since the great Brown Bomber, Joe Louis, ruled the heavyweights 25 years ago. Watch Sonny get in 4 punishing body blows. Those punches sap the strength of any fighter, and a boxer like Machen isn't going to get caught like that too often. Liston is 6 feet 1 inch tall and weighs 210 pounds this evening. Boxing experts consider Sonny, now 26 years of age, as being in his fighting prime. His style is to press forward, always putting tremendous pressure on whomever he fights. Watch Sonny stick out 2 long left jabs and then step in with a hard left hook. Liston has KO'd over half of all of his opponents with that same dynamite punch. As we get to the end of round 1, this excited crowd knows it's in for a great heavyweight fight. In rounds 2, 3, and 4, Liston was very aggressive, carrying the fight to his opponent, but getting hit with sharp counterpunches. Here in round 5, it's the excitingly powerful Sonny Liston, trying to catch up with the clever boxing, elusive Eddie Machen. Those long, powerful straight lefts by Liston will distract and hurt any fighter, and Machen is going to have to counterpunch over that jab. In the past 5 years,
I say, hey, if you don't trust me with that sack of flour, then I'm not going to trust you with my money. That's the first harmful word that I ever said to a white man. My name is Alvin Aaron. I'm 80 years old. I'm living here in Beulah. Been here for quite a while. I'd like to tell you how I got here. You see, I was born July the 14th, 1822, in Mason County, Kentucky. I was born a slave. I was the property of a Margaret Cook. Her husband died about the time I was born. Well, I stayed with Miss Margaret till I was about 10 or 11 years old. And then she sold me. She sold me to a Henry DeVoe. Well, I stayed with Mr. DeVoe for a while. And then Mr. DeVoe sold me to a Dr. Bassett. Well, Dr. Bassett, you see, he had the gold fields of California on his mind, so he decided that he was going to take his slave and travel to California to the gold mines. Me, Alvin Coffey. We took off from St. Louis and made our way to St. Joe. And when we got to St. Joe, there must have been 20 wagons there. Most of them being pulled by oxen and mules. There was 3 to 5 men on each wagon. Well, friends and neighbors come to see us off when we're in St. Joe. Some will come and see their friends and loved ones for the last time. Well, I was in the lead wagon and the word was put out that let's head out. And so we headed out down the Missouri River until we came to our crossing. And when we got to our crossing, there was a cholera epidemic. People were dying. Well, the 6th wagon in our train, one of the members got sick, and Dr. Bassett did all he could for the man, but the man died. So Dr. Bassett says, well, we should just press on hard, day and night, and try to stay ahead of this cholera epidemic. This was hard on both beast and men. Some of the oxen drivers drove those oxen so hard that they just fell out on the side of the road and just died. They would take their supplies and just double up on other wagons. Well, we made our way across Nebraska and Wyoming, Idaho, on our way to Nevada and California border to a place called Black Rock Springs. Because you see, the animals didn't have much to eat coming across because there was nothing much but just sagebrush. But see, at Black Rock Spring, there's supposed to be some good water and good grass for them. But there was danger there, though, too, you see, because there were hot springs there. So we had to make sure that the animals didn't fall into the hot springs. Well, one did. Well, the alarm went out all across the camp, and men came to try to get this poor beast out of the hot water. Some would grab him by the horn, some by the jaw, and they were pulled. And me and some other men would grab the poor beast by his tail, and all his hair came off. Well, we stayed there for a few days, and then we decided to move on. We got on the Lassen Trail and made our way down to Vina, California. Well, some of the wagons on our train went to Sacramento to pick up supplies for the winter. Well, Dr. Bassett and I, we continued our way on up to Shasta County. We made our way as far as Clear Creek. But when we got to Clear Creek, there was nothing there for the animal to eat but poison oak bush. Well, we started dry mining immediately. This was in September. Soon we had to stop mining and build ourselves some type of shelter. Because see, we had tents and they were bad enough to keep the sun off of us. Well, I worked for 8 months. You see, Dr. Bassett got sick on the way over, so I had to work for him too. I mined for Dr. Bassett and I made $1,500 for him. And in the evening, well, I would work for myself, but you see, I was working for my freedom. I would sew boots for some of the miners. I got $16 a boot. I made $700. Well, Dr. Bassett didn't get any better. So he decided we would head back to Missouri. So we left Shasta County, made our way back down to San Francisco, down to the Isthmus of Panama. It took us a day and a half to walk across. Then we took another ship and made our way to New Orleans. But when we got to New Orleans, Dr. Bassett took the gold that I had mined for him and the money that I had earned for myself. You see, Dr. Bassett took my money. See, Dr. Bassett broke his promise he made to me. But you see, I didn't say anything because my wife, Mahela, and my 5 children were still in Missouri. As soon as we get to Missouri, Dr. Bassett sold me to a Mary Tindall. Now, Mary Tindall was owned my wife and my children. Mary had 2 sons, one named Ben and one named Nelson. Now, you see, Nelson had been to California to the gold fields. So when he got back, he told the rest of the family, said, why don't you let Alvin go back to California so he can mine and make some money so he can buy his freedom. Well, at first, Nelson wasn't too fond of it. But you see, he and I had a relationship. So with a little persuasion from me, I convinced him that I would send him the money if he'd let me go. Ben and I set out for California cross country. This was my second time going to California cross country. Well, as soon as I get to California, I made my way back to Shasta, went to work in the mines again, and it wasn't long before I had made the money to buy my freedom. So I notified Mr. Nelson that I had my money. But you see, I didn't want to send him the money until I got my papers. Because, see, I remember what Dr. Bassett did to me. So I consulted with some lawyers in Shasta. And they said, you know, Alvin, you're right. Don't send the money till you get the paper. But you see, as I said, I had a good relationship with my master. So he had already sent my paper. So I was emancipated on July the 25th, 1856. I was a free man. I stayed on a little bit longer because, you see, my wife and children were still in Missouri. And I had to buy their freedom. So when I got enough money to buy their freedom, well, I took off immediately because I wanted to get there as fast as I could. So I went by way of San Francisco, by way of the Isthmus of Panama, back to Missouri. But when I got there, there was some crazy law in Missouri that said you can't buy a slave except for 2 days a year. So I had to wait, but that was all right. You see, I paid $500 a piece for my wife and my children. And we left Missouri, never to return there again. Mahela is my wife's name. She and our 5 children left Missouri, went by way of Canada. Well, I left my 2 girls with their grandmother. See, she had escaped on the Underground Railroad sometime back. Then Mahela and I and the boys continued our journey on to Shasta. Well, when I got here, I went immediately back to mining. I made enough money that I was able to buy some property. I was able to buy some animals for hauling wagons. I got caught up in the Modoc Law. It was hard and it was dangerous. Wasn't long that I was able to get my whole family back in Shasta. Now, I understood the value of education, and there was no school for colors in Shasta at that time. So me and some of the other citizens got together and petitioned the Shasta County Board of Trustees to open up a school for coloreds and Indians. Well, they received their request really gratefully. Until the school was built, and Haley and I allowed them to have school in our home. We stayed in Shasta for quite a while. One of my children was born there. One of my daughters got married in Shasta. We stayed there for quite a while, and then about 1870, we decided to relocate to Coulbourn County. I took some of the money that I had made, and we opened up a laundry down there. I bought some land. I had 250 acres of land. I raised turkeys. I made hay. I made most of my money making hay. Matter of fact, I was worth $10,000 at that time. It wasn't long that my lovely wife, Mahela, 52 years, she died. That changed my life. So I left Shasta County, made my way down to San Francisco, but when I got there, I didn't have much money because, you see, I had some business transactions that didn't go quite right. But what I had was enough that I organized the building of a home for aged and infirm colored people in Beulah, California. That's in Alameda County. Well, staying there was pretty good, but I got arrested. See, Harriet Davis, colored employee of the house, she called the sheriff on me and said I was crazy. She said she caught me trying to put a hen on the nest during the daytime, and I had some crazy look in my eyes. Well, the sheriff sent over a couple of deputies, and they arrested me, took me before some doctors, and they examined me, and they said there ain't nothing wrong with Alvin. So when they told Harriet that, Harriet wouldn't have it. She said, well, I ain't going to work here if Alvin's going to stay here. Well, I'll tell you why Harriet won't be gone. But see, Harriet owed me some money. She thought if she could get rid of me, she wouldn't have to pay the money. But I told Harriet, I says, I'll pay my $150 to stay here. And I ain't going nowhere. You see, I have had a hard life. And all I want to do is just spend what little I have left in peace.
Okay, we're going to take a quick intermission and then continue the show.
Roses are red, like our native skin. Violets, blue, like pleasant sighs. Me, my name is Pauline. And if looks could kill, well, child, we definitely moved to Shasta for you. Plagued by hopeless fears, and situations destined for a purpose. We grasped the hand of the unseen, reached farther than slavery, looked harder than our ancestors. We moved west, the land of impossible dreams, the place where people didn't see what they could see. They looked further, reached deeper. The place where me was me, and I ain't no nigga. Shasta became a melting pot. My family and I were proud to call home. Truth is, though our skin said one thing, our history, it said another. My sister and I, we always pretended we were royalty. I guess that's why she had the gall to marry an American soldier. Not simply a caravan of relatives. We came to this land with a blood pact. One that said, we will not leave this land or each other until we seized everything
it had. Even unto death. California became an expanse, my family likened to that of an African safari. Not simply golden because of its sun rays. Tehama became our homestead, this land our prophet. As we used some of our ancestral knowledge, pleasant ranched sheep and cattle, ranchers. Who would have thought? Colors. Owning more than one spot. Oh, and we owned a lot. True testament was, no one owned us. We looked at the waters. And envisioned the ripples as the song of our past drenched us. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. And the water became our ministry. An allotment of sorts we humbly stumbled into without force. Who couldn't credit God with all we had gained? I guess that is why we started our assembly. African Methodist Episcopal Church, 1016 Madison Street, Red Bluff. A respect for hard work was thick in the air. It had us reach for buckets we had never dipped our hands in. A school. A school. That's right, a school where everyone could be taught, no matter who they were, even the have-nots. I wish paint a picture of when the first colored child drew their name. In celebration, I'm confident the ground sang. The land of the free and the home where we're raised. Brave to be or not to be. Free to ask questions liberally. In education, finally. And we were free. A family, a home, a ranch, a cabin, but none of these things defined our family. A pact between sisters, a promise never thought, a blood pact between sisters turned farewell to a mother who now lives in our hearts. You see, Cynthia died, but not our legacy. No dimension, oppression, nor religion could cause such an efficacy. It was there on the water, a practical thought, a steam engine birthed right from our heart. It was as if Cynthia was whispering, the Northwest is ours. And it was ours. And we were sure not to harm. Can you believe it? Our ideas became flesh, and the bridge many walk on. If someone would have told us we could make a difference, then it was never about the money. It was about who we were in Him. We held on to that 5-letter last name like it was more valuable than gold. With the sun held up, we cannot be sold. I remember when he started working. Pride. Is what it told. We, the industry. We things with our ideas. And with our hands, we make a difference. A difference in eternity. Mr. West, a good friend, we coined superstitious. He always told us to keep our mouth shut on our inventions. But why? Why would we hide something we proudly made in the light? Sad thing is, when Mr. West died, he died with the same fear held tight. We never wanted to be something or not. We were just happy. Enlightenment knew us. We were never the things we created. No fairy, church, school, nor tractor could ever take our sanctity. So next time you dream a dream or have an intelligent thought, you make sure you pay respect to pleasant Dixon, Logan, the brother, the husband, the father, who sadly left us March the 4th, 1899. It was he, the man, no law, experience, or patent could ever rob.
so, even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day, on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day, right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
I have a dream too, that one day I will be a queen, remembered in time. That I'm just an ordinary woman, just dreaming. Phoebe Coulbourn. Child, yes, you are a dreamer. How quickly you forget your roots. 1818. Born a slave in Alabama. Illiterate. Why, Phoebe, you never even learned to read or write. Queen. What high hopes you have. Cleaning woman, housekeeper is all you will ever be. Freed slave now, but there is just so far a slave can go. Phoebe, you're just an ordinary woman, just dreaming. $18.50. Thanks to Mr. James Beckworth. Here I am in California, land of gold mines, lumber, and sawmills. Honest, hard work for men and women. I promise I will work hard. I will save every penny I have. I will make a decent living for me and my faithful Indian boy, John. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to my best friend of all others on earth, Colonel William McGee. Now, Colonel McGee, he used to be the sheriff in Mobile, Alabama. Now he's here in California, land surveyor and map maker. Colonel McGee is my best friend of all others on earth. We're safe here in California, far away from the South. And slavery seems a long way away. $18.54 now. I just bought my first house from a Mr. George Shirley. $700. That's a lot of money. Colonel McGee, my best friend of all others on earth. He witnessed my mark. And he put his name next to my signature. My mark. Nothing but an X. Just one X. But Colonel McGee, he knows what it means. I know what it means. It means that Phoebe Coulbourn worked hard. She saved her money. Phoebe Coulbourn's mark next to his name. Now, Colonel McGee, best if you make this house your home. I will clean and keep house for you, and I will live in a house nearby. It's the least I can do to say thank you for all you have done for me and my Indian boy. My mark, your name. We make a very good team. It's 1855. Just 1 year later, Phoebe keeps moving on. She's now the owner of the American Ranch property in Anderson. Interesting. Nobody knows today that the American Ranch property became the beginnings of the establishment of Anderson, California. What do you think of that? A freed black slave owning land in Shasta and Anderson. I want to check on something here to make sure that I don't give you any false facts. Now, Mr. Thomas Freeman owned the property, but he had to borrow some money from the seller to pay Major Pearson. Be ready. So Mr. Freeman, he could not repay the loan. No loan is ever free. So guess what? I took the property. Now you think Phoebe is a shrewd character? No. Phoebe's just a smart businesswoman. Colonel McGee, your mark, your signature made a big difference in my life. (1858). Sad times. Lord, take this pain away from me. How could this happen? How did this happen? I feel like I could die. I should die. There's no point in living. This is a cruel world. My faithful Indian boy. March 30th, 1858. My boy, John, he dies. He's only 15 years old. Phoebe, sweet child, I feel your pain and your profound sadness. Your faithful Indian boy, John, was by your side and by your heart. This is all so sad. The 1860 census will record the faithful Indian boy as your son. We will never know that truth. But let truth be known, Phoebe. You will hold him in your heart and your memory forever. No one can take away your memories.
Like a motherless child, sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Way up in that heavenly land, way up in the heavenly land. True believer, way up in the heavenly land, way up in the heavenly land.
1860s now. I keep moving on. I now own the foot of the mountain station. You know, right over there by Noble Immigrant Trail, kind of east of Dersh's stopping place. You want to know how I came to get that property? I'm sure you do. Well, I was working for Mr. William Billy Smith as his housekeeper. Mr. Smith, he was having a little bit of trouble making the stopping place a paying business. Well, guess who had to step in? Who do you think? Phoebe Coulbourn. I had some money saved, so I made him a loan. Well, you know what happens with loans. You make a loan, you can't pay it back, and everything just goes down the drain. Well, Mr. Smith, he couldn't pay that loan back. So he had to settle the loan with 280 acres. That's a lot of property. 280 acres. And right there, sitting right on that 280 acres, was foot of the mountain station. It was a dream come true for a poor, not quite so poor anymore, freed black slave from Alabama. Foot of the Mountain Station had everything. It had a saloon, the best whistle wetter you could ever want. Made it a good reason to stop here. It had a gambling hall. Got any money? Because when you came into Foot of the Mountain Station, you're likely to leave with much less than you brought in. It had a dance hall, top floor. Oh, how Phoebe loved to dance. It had 6 bedrooms, private, and off to the side. It had a 12-foot wraparound veranda with 2 large 8-foot doors topped with glass that opened into an impressive hall. Why, don't you think that was a dream come true for an ordinary woman like me? Phoebe finally had her palace. I know you don't think it was much, but it was good enough for me. I have a dream that one day I will be a queen, remembered in time. Am I just an ordinary woman?
Them that's got shall get, them that's not shall lose. So the Bible says, and it still is news. Mama may have, Papa may have, God bless the child that's got her own, that's got her own. Yes, the rich gets more, while the weak ones fade. Empty pockets don't ever make the grave. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own, that's got his own. Monday, you got lots of friends. They're crowding round your door. But Tuesday, when the spending ends, they don't come around anymore. Rich relations give crusts of bread and such. You can help yourself, but don't you take too much. Mama may have, and Papa may have. God bless the child that's got his own, that's got his own.
I died in 1876. They say I died from old age. Most say I had a good life for a freed black slave from Alabama. I left a fortune. I left $100 in fine clothes to my niece in Alabama. And I left $3,000. That's a lot of money. To my best friend of all others on earth, Colonel William McGee. Now I'm buried in the colored section, yes, there is such a thing, of Shasta Union Cemetery. My grave is surrounded by an ornate wrought iron fence. Colonel McGee, he's buried there too. Not close to me like we were in life, but far down by the front entrance. An impressive granite stone decorates his grave. He's buried right next to the second of his 3 wives. Colonel William McGee was my best friend of all others on earth. But close to my grave, right next to me, is a monument that Phoebe Coulbourn erected. It says, to the memory of the faithful Indian boy, John. March 30th, 1858. Aged 15 years. My heart died on that day in 1858, long before my body died in 1876. So when you have time, come by Shasta Union Cemetery. Visit with Phoebe, Colonel McGee, the Indian boy, real peaceful there, nothing to be afraid of. And when you're there quietly sitting, remember Phoebe, but don't remember her dying. Remember her living, her passion for life, her endurance, her strength. Because guess what? Phoebe is in every one of you. Black, white, red, brown, yellow. Phoebe's legacy lives on in you. In every person who ever had a dream. And remember that Phoebe Coulbourn was no ordinary woman.
our players. Leah Tate as Eddie Machen. Amanda Flowers Peterson as Pleasant Dixon Logan. Fred McGee as Alvin Coffey. Michelle Woods as Phoebe Coulbourn. Noelle Ross. And Pat Karch on the piano. And special thanks to Annette McGee, Dennis Bogner, Luann Miller, and our director, Matt Cummings. Let's hear it for everyone. Let's give them one more bow. Thank you. Today is really about community. We celebrate and honor our past so we can look forward to our future. At the Shasta Historical Society, our mission is to bring to life the history and preserve it for future generations. Today, we are honored to raise money for a new Black History Month scholarship. As you leave, please support our future by donating. There are donation boxes at all the doors. Every dollar truly helps. Thank you all for attending.